Hello, friends. My name is Jake Montanez, and I'm working on getting my self-publishing journey documented in a vlog. And today I wanted to talk about my first NaNoWriMo. NaNoWriMo is National Novel Writing Month, which happens in November of every year. The first one I participated in for real was in 2021. I've known about it for probably 20 years or so. I'm sure I knew about it before I joined the Navy, at least. Um, and 2021, I finally retired from the Navy and was working on settling into civilian life, or I had finally settled into civilian life and felt like I wanted to tackle actually getting down to writing, which is something that's always been near and dear to me. Um, in a previous vlog, I talked about finding inspiration for the story. So I had this inspiration for a story, and when I finally sat down to it, I had no idea where I really wanted to start with it. I had a character, I had a very, very broad story arc that I wanted to go about, and it was pretty much as simple as my main character's name was Trinea. She was a light blessed character, and she had powers that were granted to her for whatever reason, and that she was ultimately going to die, be resurrected as a Death Knight of some sort. It wouldn't be called a Death Knight in my story because I didn't want to infringe on copyrights or anything like that, but it would be something along the same lines. And then she would side with the realm of life, even though she had previously died. Um, so that was the broad story arc. There was no planning gone into it beyond that, and didn't know where I was going to go with it from there. So I basically sat down and decided to start writing because that's really all I do. I guess you could call it a pantser, right by the seat of my pants. Everything I do, or maybe even a discovery writer, that's probably another good term to throw out there. Um, but the story comes to me as I'm writing it, and I'll sit down, have no idea where I'm going with it next, and when it all boiled down to it, I started with like the framework of okay, I have light and I have elements. I've got shamans and basically a priestess type character, and I wanted to explore what that was going to be like. So at the beginning of each of my chapters, I have an epigraph that talks about some of the world building aspects without being too direct. It's only a paragraph long for each one of those, and I wanted to explore the formation of light and darkness, good and evil, that sort of thing, and how it would play into my world. So as I was writing, I was using that as like a framework for me to deal with in the background. Then I just sat down and uh, every day wrote a chapter. I made my goal 2,000 words. I think the requirement for NaNoWriMo is 1,666. The overall goal of NaNoWriMo is for you to write a novel in the course of 1 month, which is actually quite easily doable, even with the hectic schedule that I have. So that 1,666 words per day for 30 days gets you to, I don't know, mathematically, it's right at about 50,000 words, which is decent for a small size novel. And I wanted to beat that. I think I came out around 55,000 by the end of the month. And it was a little more than that when everything was all said and done with the story. Um, but 2,000 words a day, trying to come up with a chapter as I go along. And uh, the world building kind of came as it was. I was trying to explore how the characters were and what sort of situations they were in. I know this is all very vague, but I also kind of want to maintain some vagueness for the sake of protecting the story. Even though, as I wrote the story, daily I was putting it out on Royal Road, which is like a sort of a publishing website that is more lit RPG oriented. Mine was more of a dark fantasy, so it was still fantasy, but the genres weren't quite right. So I never really got too much of a following. I was kind of hoping for it by posting daily, but I didn't really get it there. Um, so it was out there just to keep me on task because simultaneously Royal Road was doing its own little promotion thing where it corresponds with NaNoWriMo. Put out the same amount of words, you get like a free month or a free year of a subscription to their website. So I was like, sure, I'll do that. Um, so I pushed through the story, got it done, and let it sit for quite a while. It sat for most of a year, and then when I felt good and ready for it, I started writing a sequel slowly off and on, and then really started focusing on it with the next NaNoWriMo in 2022. And from there, I kind of stopped. I don't know why. I did finish NaNoWriMo as a result, but I didn't actually complete that second book like I had thought to. Um, but the third year rolled around last year. I had revisited all of what I had written and decided to completely rewrite everything. So I was in the middle of rewriting it, and that it was what became the genesis of what is now the Lightblessed Saga, rather than just the basic story being called Lightblessed. And the first book was Night of the Illumination, and that took all of the elements from my alpha story from that first NaNoWriMo. And I had sat down, and then I became kind of a planner. I was like, okay, what are these elements from this first version of the story did I like? What stuff did I not like? And in the course of all of that, I decided, all right, I've got actually like three good story arcs just within this one book. I think I could break this up into three, expand it, work a little bit better with Daitan, who was the secondary character. I'd kind of given him short shrift on everything, and I felt that there was a lot more with his story arc that I could build on. So that became for NaNoWriMo 23 basically a rebuild of the entire story. Almost every chapter, not almost every chapter was completely written from the ground up, with some very small exceptions where I had kept some of the epigraphs from the original one to maintain that sense of story building. I did kind of change them up slightly and add a few extra ones, um, but NaNoWriMo has been like the focal point for a majority of my writing. I'll write a big chunk of stuff in November, and then through the course of the next year, I've been trying to accelerate what I'm doing. But for this year, 2024, I had finally decided, okay, enough's enough. I'm wishy washy. I haven't actually published anything. I want to get something published. So I said, all right, starting in January, started bugging an editor. Took a while to nail down a time frame for her to actually get it edited, which became the beginning of June. So I sent it off to her then, and that's where we are today. And I'm waiting on her to get it back. Still, it's a couple days past when I was expecting her to have it done, but she had some issues come up, and I should have it sometime, hopefully later today, and I'll be able to talk about it in my next vlog. If you have any questions about NaNoWriMo or anything like that, feel free to drop a comment or questions any that you have below. And thank you for watching.